yesterday we had a bit of good news. It's been a while since we had some economic good news, but we saw inflation for July ease, and I think that was mostly unexpected. I don't think I really see forecasts from economists on that now. We see that headline inflation dropped. It dropped by 0.8%. And at 33.4%. Remember, this is coming from 34% to 33.4%. But when you look at that's compared to what we had in June, and then we also saw month-on-month basis, year-on-year it's still high. Obviously, when you compare July of 2023 to 2024, base year effect, we still expect, because it was really high last year. So when you compare it to July of 2023 year-on-year, you see it's up 9.32%. Now, month-on-month basis, we see that for a month increase, it's 2.28%, and that's lower than what we had in June. June, it was 2.31%, so it dropped 0.03% when you look at June as a month and July as a month, 2024. We look at urban inflation, and we see that it's 35.77%. And it's 9.94% higher year-on-year compared to same time last year, while rural inflation is just about 8.77% higher compared to this time last year. So, but I mean, conversations I've had off camera on this, a lot of people have asked, so we see it has dropped. Prices are supposed to have dropped 0.8%, but no, it's the rate of increase that has actually reduced. But let's get a bigger picture, or a more realistic picture now, with economist and the Chief Executive Officer of CPPE, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Yusuf, good morning, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you.
So for the first time in 19 months, we can actually report that inflation has dropped in Nigeria. I wonder if we should really smile, because people are saying prices in the market are not really reflecting this.
Well, I think it calls for some celebration, some cautious celebration, I must say. Just as you said, over the last 19 months, we have been seeing an increase in inflation. So for the first time, we are seeing a deceleration. I think that is good news. But what is important ultimately is to see the prices come down. Because sometimes people get confused with these terminologies. Reduction in inflation rate does not imply reduction in prices. Just as you said, what it implies is reduction in the rate of increase. So what the citizens are looking forward to is actually what you can call deflation. That is reduction in prices. And I think this is a very good first step. We are seeing a deceleration, and we are hoping that by the time we progress into the rest of the year, we begin to see a much more impact, especially from some of the measures that the government is trying to put in place with respect to, trade policy, reduction in import duty on food items, possibly also if we see an improvement in our refining of domestic refining of petroleum products. And of course, we are likely to see progressively a greater impact of the base effect on inflation. So from July, August, September, we expect to see a much more better scenario in terms of the inflation numbers.
Yeah, because even before now, there's the expectation that by August, I think a lot of people did not see this reduction in the inflation rate for July. They see it more in August, because even as you noted, the import waiver kicks in, started yesterday. So by the end of this month, we should be able to see the impact. That means that we should see numbers even cool further by the end of August.
Yes. That is what I expect to see. But again, we need to also appeal to the bureaucracy. Because it is one thing for the government to announce a policy. It's another thing for those policies to be expeditiously implemented. One is worried about the lag between policy pronouncements and policy implementation. And that is something that we need to address, because this issue of inflation and cost of living is an emergency. We should address it with the urgency that it demands. We have seen the way the citizens have been reacting and all of that. So we need to be more expeditious in the way we address it. So I'm hoping that if the implementation is accelerated, we are likely to begin to see a reduction, even more reduction in the prices of goods. And don't forget, the trade policy angle or the fiscal policy measure that is being put in place is targeting more of the food component. And if you look at the basket of these inflation issues we are confronted with, the biggest component, almost 60-70%, is arising from food inflation. So if we're able to get a handle on that, I think that will help to further moderate prices going forward. And secondly, we are beginning to see some stability of some sort in the foreign exchange, in the exchange rate, even though the rate is still high. But I can see that the CBN is now not taking some interventionist position to ensure that we keep the rate within a particular band, 1,005, 1,500, 1,006, which is also good. I think that will also help in the moderation of the inflation situation. And I'm also getting reports that even the security situation in some of the agricultural, agri-producing areas are also getting better, which means that with the efforts of some state governments or some nationals trying to support agri-production, we're also likely to see an improvement, because the reduction we are beginning to see also has a seasonality component, because we are beginning to see some reduction in some of the prices, particularly tomato, pepper, onions, and so on. It's not just a reduction in the inflation, it's actually a reduction in price. So we expect that to be replicated across all the food segments and other sectors of the economy going forward.
Yes, I think you touched on, and the next thing I would like for us to look at, which is the seasonality of it, because we know one of the reasons we're seeing a tapering of prices, especially the perishables, is that it's harvest period. And so we also know even that this import waiver season ends in December. So, I mean, it begs the question, what are we doing behind the scene to prepare us for after this bountiful season that we're having, both the harvest and the import waiver?
Well, I think what we need to do a lot more of is to ensure all year round, farming. Because for so many years, we have been hooked on to this rain-fed agriculture, where you have your harvest, you planting during rainy season, where it is the weather or the climatic cycle that determines the way we farm. We should migrate away from that to ensure that we have all year-round farming. And that can only happen if we invest a lot more in our water resource development. In other words, ensuring that the use of irrigation is much more, is much more upscaled, so that all the year-round people can farm. I think that for me is very critical. And also leveraging technology. I know that there has been a lot of debate around this GMP and all of that, but we need to interrogate that a lot more to see how we can infuse a lot more technology in agriculture. Because that is what is happening all over the world and across all sectors. Technology is changing the face of every sector. That should also happen in agriculture. And we expect the subnationals to also be to be up and doing as far as agricultural production is concerned, because they have even bigger role to play, in agri production than even the federal government. They are closer to the farmers. They have more responsibility in terms of land. They are the custodian of the land and all of that. And they also have, the responsibility of providing some critical inputs, even to the farmers, like machineries, like harvesters, like agrochemicals, and all of that. So while the government is dealing with the fiscal policy components of agri production and agri productivity, the subnationals have to do a lot more with physical involvement to support those who are in agriculture. I think for me that is very critical.
Yeah, other than agriculture, we know the issue of transportation, energy costs also contributes largely to these inflation numbers. I wonder if you see that also tapering in the coming months.
Well, with the promise, or with the expectation that our domestic refining of petroleum products will increase, hopefully in the next 1 or 2 months, that should help to bring down energy costs. And with the promise by government that at least some concessionary terms will be given to domestic refineries in terms of purchasing the crude in naira and all of that. If we're able to upscale domestic refining, first, there will be less vulnerability to exchange rate shocks. We see what is happening geopolitically now. We are likely to see a much higher increase in crude oil price, which often lead to higher domestic energy costs. So if we're able to be shielded from that as a result of increase in domestic refining of petroleum products, we're likely to see some stability in terms of energy prices. I think that for me is very good. And if we're able to also increase the domestic refining, we are likely to see less pressure on our foreign exchange reserve, on our foreign exchange market, which will help to also stabilize the exchange rate. And because exchange rate is also a very critical factor in inflation. So if you have that pass-through effect through the reduction in importation of petroleum products, stabilizing the exchange rate, that will also have an impact in inflation. Because both inflation and energy costs are very critical factors. I mean, both the energy cost and exchange rate are very critical factors in the inflation situation. So I think the outlook is looking positive in my view. We're able to stay the course and pursue all these policies conscientiously, and also ensure that the intervention from the fiscal policy side are also done in a very transparent manner, so that we will give concessions of importation of this thing to companies that really have the capacity to make an impact. We don't want these things to get into the hands of people who will now be looking for a third party to go and import these things. I think that should not happen. So I think we are on course, to reversing this very challenging situation of high cost of living.
Yeah, well, talking about energy security there, we were told that the Port Harcourt refinery would begin operations this month. But, I mean, okay, we're just in the middle of the month. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but it seems it's gone a bit quiet in that aspect. Also, of course, we're expectant from Dangote refinery, also PMS. Was another promise coming from there. I guess if we could have products from these two domestic refiners, as well as the modular refineries who have been working behind the scene. Also, I guess, as you said, the pressure on FX might reduce and we might see better numbers for the Naira.
Yes, of course. Because the beauty of domesticating or localizing refining is, one, reducing the costs arising from importation. Because the cost of importation is influenced first by the high crude oil price, second by the exchange rate. So we localize the refining and production of petroleum products, that component will be out of it. So that helps to bring down energy costs. Then there is a macroeconomic impact through the exchange rate. Because the less you exert pressure of importation on the foreign exchange market, the higher the prospects of stability in the foreign exchange market. The higher the prospects of the Naira even gaining a lot more strength. So it has the prospect of improving the macroeconomic environment, particularly through the exchange rate, and also it has the prospect of reducing energy costs. And those two variables are very, very critical, to stabilizing the economy and reducing and moderating the current temperature as far as cost of living, inflation, cost of production, cost of transportation is concerned. So the impact will be very, very profound and very significant.
Yeah, we look forward to the days of energy security in the country. Thank you so much, Chief Executive Officer of CPPE, Dr. Muda Yusuf.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.